Hi, I'm Doma T. Pungo, and you're watching Redefine Possible, which is in partnership with AARP, the Chicago Sky, and of course Donda's House. And our guest today is Felicia Shakespeare, who is an author, an educator, brand strategist, whatever it is, you do it. A motivational speaker, and just a guru when it comes to all things branding and digital literacy. So one of the things we're talking about is digital literacy and how it impacts our communities and how we consume information. Now, we see a gap in the ways that information is passed on in different mediums, and that's what we're going to try to close that gap today. But first, we got to define what digital literacy is, which is kind of a tongue twister.
Yeah.
And thank you again for being with me, Felicia.
Thank
but what is digital literacy?
Thank you so much for having me tonight, by the way. But when I think of digital literacy, I think of, and I do want to actually stay true to the definition, but it is the ability to evaluate, utilize, share, and create content. And when we think of the content, we're thinking digital, we're thinking online, and basically through the internet, and through information technology. So that would be the proper definition of digital literacy. But at the end of the day, what I would like to say about digital literacy is that's the way we're communicating in the world today. So everything we're doing, for the most part, is involving technology. So I think that's the biggest key. It's involving technology and the internet. So that's how we have to make sure that we are able to navigate those effectively.
And how do you think, particularly in our communities, how does it impact the greater community, our ability to understand the best ways to communicate whatever our messaging is in this digital space, especially since everything is on digital?
Well, I think that for the most part, you have to identify your purpose being online. I think that's critical. Once again, it's a matter of access.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a huge thing. And when you say our community, I'm assuming you're referring to different types of...
We're diverse communities.
Yeah, diverse community. Okay,
yeah,
so thank you. Mm-hmm. So if we're specifically talking about diversity in the minority communities, I think we are at a divide. When I say that, there's still, unfortunately, an issue with us having access on a consistent basis. So when I think of, for example, education, this comes up all the time. A lot of students, for example, may not have technology at home. So the one good thing is now a lot of devices are being brought to the school. A lot of technology has been integrated into the learning. But then I start thinking of the issue of, okay, yeah, that's good and that's fine, but now at 3 o'clock when it's time for the student to go home, if they can't take those sources and resources with them, to actually do those projects, that is a huge disconnect. That's a huge problem. So what I'm saying, to me, that's the issue. That's the deficit. The other side to that is what we're doing in the school interchangeable with what the parents actually have given access to students to at home? So in other words, if they only have a smartphone, or if they don't have Wi-Fi, for example, there are a lot of students that don't have, once again, the access, and I think that's a huge problem.
No, that's a great point, especially thinking about, and the reason why I opened up with diverse communities, when we look at social media, we over-index in the use of social media.
Right.
African Americans, Latinos over-index in the use of Twitter, Facebook, all of these apps, you name it. But in those same communities, I guess at least on the poorer or lower socioeconomic end of those communities, access to that information or those mediums might not be readily available.
Okay.
How do we look at the connections between digital literacy, understanding how, how to move in this digital space, and media literacy, and what are the differences between those two things?
That's a great point. I like to think of digital literacy, media literacy, information literacy as all being interconnected literacy. At the end of the day, we're talking about the world of information and how you navigate information. So when we say digital literacy, we're talking about being online as far as the internet or devices. When we're talking about media literacy, we're referring to mediums, whether it be the television, whether it be the news. So those are kind of like, it's almost in the way you're getting to the information. And information literacy is basically, how do I vet information? So for example, we're dealing with a lot of issues in society right now involving fake news, right? We're hearing that whole concept. So at the end of the day, what is really real? Although you're getting on Facebook, although you're getting on Twitter, everybody is portraying themselves to be a certain way, but what is really real out there? And I think that's the real challenge
It is.
that we have to teach, and even in the form of journalism, even what we're doing here today.
Yeah.
You know, you have to actually be able to verify and confirm these stories and these types of informations that are being put out there.
And I love how you pointed out the nuance though between media literacy and information literacy. When I thought media literacy, I didn't think about the medium.
Okay.
And that is important because we communicate differently. Just as we communicate differently on Instagram versus Facebook.
Right.
The media comes across differently on TV versus radio. So what are some tips about vetting information, no matter what that medium is? For example, you talked about fake news. If there's a news article that comes across my feed, how can I tell whether this is current news, whether it's something I need to look into? How do I really vet all of the information that comes to us from all directions in this information age?
Well, when I think of information, I think of the source. You know, so I think that the primary way that we start with vetting information is understanding what source. So for example,
where we're getting it from,
So for example, with students, back to being an educator, one thing I teach students, okay, what's more credible? If you have a .com or a .edu, you know, all of that makes a difference. .gov, you know, those are some of the ways that we can kind of see what I would call tips or ways to understand where the information is coming from. Because 9 times out of 10, if it's a .edu and it's a university website, that information has been formulated and put out there by those professors or by those college officials. So once again, to me, it's the source. Like anything else, it's involving research. So with information literacy, I think that's the biggest key, teaching individuals how to go about research.
Yeah.
And one thing we do, and I can't think of the term off the top of my head right now, hopefully it'll come to me before we end it.
Yeah.
But one thing you do even in the graduate school level is you want to make sure reviews, right? You want to understand how many reviews have been done on a document. So what's typically accepted is the more reviews that have been done by scholarly type individuals. Of course, you want to vet them out. It's sort of like giving an endorsement. So I think that's critical.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I don't think there's no 100% proof as far as anything is guaranteed, but I think at the end of the day, you just still have to do your research.
You want to make sure it's trusted and the research is done. Like, to your point, for example, if you're reading something from the Washington Post,
right,
you know that had to go through a vetting process.
Right.
Doesn't mean that everything ever written in the history of the Washington Post has been 100% true, but there's a strong likelihood of that. Now, you raise a good point. I was even looking at articles that come from websites that purport to be NBC. Well, it might be something that says NBE, and if you look closely, you might not see that it's actually not NBC.com, which happens, which is why this is so important, why we talk about the importance of all ages being digitally literate, because the elderly succumb to a lot of scams online because we're not digitally literate, especially in that age group. Can you talk about why it's important for all the way from toddlers to grade schoolers to the elderly having a grasp of how to navigate this digital space?
Very good point. What I'm finding, and I'll just go back to this, I think one critical thing is reading and even actually having the opportunity to understand policy. And I think a lot of times we just assume too much when we take in information. So as far as the digital space, you know, a lot of things are put out there. But if we don't take the opportunity to actually read through what's being presented, and then understanding also, and I'm thinking right now more so like of social media, for example, when it comes to us, for example, I've had recent experiences with receiving notification that Twitter's going to change their policy. So if you're not taking the time to read through how they're using the information about you, you know, it's almost like for example, they gave a date, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I never read those.
Right. So June 28th, I believe everything's going to change if you don't choose to go into the settings and make those accommodate what you want. Then ultimately, it's by default, your information is going to be available in so many different spaces, whether it be for money-making purposes, whether it be just public information or public knowledge. So those are the little things. So when you talk about children, first and foremost, I think the adult has to manage that space for them and not just assume they're out there doing what they're supposed to do, of course, setting parent controls. But as far as the elderly, I just think that has to even be intentional about those who are actually seeing after them. So whether it be family members who have now taken the role in their lives to help educate them. So for example, I think of my mom.
Yeah.
You know, and even tonight before I came, she was like, "Oh, such and such retweeted what I did." And it's just amazing.
Wait, your mom knows what a retweet is, right?
It kind of made me smile because this is the same lady that I couldn't get to send a text message a few years ago.
Right.
But once she got access and understood the ease of using this particular technology, and then of course me informing her of what she should do and how she can go about it. I kind of teach her things. So I just think it's important for us to just take the time to be intentional about helping those who cannot help themselves.
Yeah, and if you don't happen to have a daughter that happens to be a brand strategist, like Felicia Shakespeare, you can come to AARP's tech events. We have a slew of them. Tuesday, June 6th is the next, 10:30 all the way through 4 p.m. We're talking about how to become more digitally literate at whatever level you are, right? So online safety from 3 to 4, 1 to 2 beyond the basic, and the intro is from 10:30 to 12. It's happening at Evergreen Park Public Library, 9400 Troy Avenue. The website is right there for you at the bottom, aarp.event.com/ARPTech Chicago. So make sure you check that out if you don't have a Felicia Shakespeare sitting around that can teach you how to tweet. Also, if you have any questions, by the way, call 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. The phone lines are open. This is Redefine Possible. Once again, we're talking about digital literacy. Brought up social media, and it's growing in both personal and business engagements, right? So when I think about Twitter, or when most people think about Twitter, we think about our personal interactions with friends, we think about topics, etc. But more and more businesses are looking at how we engage social media. Why is it so important to be cognizant of what it is that we put out there, and how do we better manage that piece of navigating digital literacy? Just social media, both as personal, our personal interactions and our business interactions.
Well, I think that with social media, once again, you have to first and foremost realize that once it's out there, it's out there. And when I say that, you can even delete things, but the way it's set up, it will never go away based on the structure of the way social media is set up.
Say that again. Once it's out there,
once
it
it's
never
out there,
really
it never goes
away.
away. So even if, and that's why you see a lot of times in Hollywood or, this SAR say they tweeted this and then they deleted it, but somebody saw it for that split second and now it's out there and it's going viral. But when I think of business versus personal, there's 2 points to take. It depends on the type of business that you have. And like for me, for example, a lot of what I do involves, dealing directly with people and engaging people individually. I'm not selling per se a product, I'm selling a service. So depending on the type of business category that you have, I think you have to first and foremost decide, like for me, I feel when you are dealing with a personal, people on a personal level, as in those are your clients, there's a part of you that you have to be authentically showing and sharing. But you also have to know how much to share. Now, some people say separate the business from the personal. But I just think you have to really figure out what works for you. I think, once again, if you're in the business of selling tires, there may not be a need for you to have any interaction outside of posting your sales, your services, your promotions, the materials, what's new, what's in, But if you are an author, or if you are someone who wants to coach people, they need to understand the value of your testimonials, of what, to understand that they can make a connection to you, because once again, even with coaching, as an example, you make the connection to the individual that you choose, and once again, you're making an investment, a financial investment. But I think there still is a fine line to overshare. They call it oversharing, actually, in the digital world. So you can do something called oversharing information. So I just think you have to be careful.
Those are those people who post every 5 minutes?
Yeah, those every 5 minutes. And I think back to the time I first got on Facebook, right after MySpace was going away.
You've been in this digital game for a long time. MySpace is back in the day.
Right, that's back in the day.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know who's over in MySpace. I don't think too many people over in MySpace now. But I was really, it just reminds me of a situation where I had a classmate. And actually, that's what actually, just to give a little personal experience,
please.
how I got on Facebook, because we were planning our class reunion, and kind of all my classmates were like, oh, let's just set up our stuff over there. So that's what prompted me to go. But I remember anyway, after some time, now we're all connected. one individual just began to share her business, and just like her, because I guess the question on Facebook is what's on your mind,
right?
And she literally took that to the the extreme, and I just felt like, oh my God, someone needs to really inbox her and just kind of let her know this is way too much information. So that was kind of like my first wake up call, to just see. What it's not about what you think, really. It's really how you want to be perceived.
That is a good point.
So I think if we take it from that perspective, don't put what's on your mind, because I think that's the pull. It's almost like Facebook is a psychology, or a psychologist that people feel that they can use. But what do you want to be perceived as on the other end? So whether it be personal, whether it be professional, and of course we know nowadays most colleges are looking at your social media. They want access to that. Most employers, and of course the law enforcement. I know a particular individual whose husband, actually that's his job. He sits in the police department, and that's what he does. He navigates, just to see what predators are out there, what criminal activity may be going on. So it's used for a variety of things. So you just have to be careful.
So what are some tips then for someone developing the digital presence? And I asked that thinking about, this popped in my head as you talk about MySpace or whatever. Is there someone out there who wasn't on MySpace, wasn't on Facebook, may have worked their whole career, 65 years old, retired, but maybe having some other business interests or wants to develop an online presence, but didn't come up in this digital age the way we have? How does that person start from scratch and build up their digital presence? And what are the best ways for them to do that?
Well, I just think they should take baby steps. Content is key. Once again, what is the purpose of your social media? Some individuals don't have a need to be on social media for business purposes. And if you want your community to only be your family and friends, you can set it up as such and just make it that. And of course, you know what you're going to share in that space. Yeah. But if you're looking to do things where you're opening up, and once again, when I say opening up, as in you're adding friends and individuals, because most of us, if we look at our followers, I'm sure you have quite a few followers. Most of our followers we may not ever meet.
No idea who many of them are.
Know who these individuals are, what their motivations are. So I would say content is key. Strategizing what type of content and your purpose for your social media posts. If you're doing it for business purposes, of course you want to do it. You want to be there often. You can't be out of sight so long, because out of sight, out of mind. So I think you have to be there on a consistent, regular basis. I think the beauty of social media is that it's free and it's something that you can utilize and gain insight. Like for me, there's things I always see just based on the friends of the friends of the friends that I have, and I use it for business purposes in most cases, because I'm seeing information just out there on a day-by-day basis. But once again, the content, I would also say you don't have to be on every platform. I just think some people feel like they have to learn it all. So back to your point, if you're going to make baby steps, maybe become a specialist in one social media platform. So if you think, so for example, if I talk to my hairstylist all the time, I'm like, Instagram, that's your place, because why? You're always dealing with visuals.
Okay.
And you want to if you want to get your name out there, you want to show people exactly what your product is all about. You want to do short video, that's the perfect place for you. But become a specialist and be consistent. I think the key is consistency.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, becoming a specialist. There are also always classes, and when I say that, I mean there's always promotions. And even if you can't get a promotion online or see one, you can go on YouTube. There's always tutorials to help you do what you need to do.
Or you can come to AARP's tech event. It's on Tuesday, June 6th, 10:30 again to 4. And also, if you can't make Tuesday, there are a slew of workshops. AARP Illinois hosts Microsoft classes all the way from now through June 20th. Telling you how to getting to know Windows 10, avoiding frauds and scams, which is super important, getting to know Skype, intro to digital photos, etc. So definitely take advantage of all of those opportunities.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, and one thing, and this may come up later in our conversation, but another way to get connected, if you're not that versed, is meetups. Like a lot of meetups are going on.
That's good. Okay.
In Chicago. Like for example, I write, and there's one called Just Write Meetup. So once again, a meetup is a social community where you can actually go live and actually get to actually be with individuals to actually talk about specific topics. So I think if you Googled or searched out those types of opportunities, because I don't think you should be in a silo. If you are a personable person, of course, once again, as I was stating before, there are opportunities online too for trainings all the time.
And we'll have that stuff on the Facebook page as well. Felicia Shakespeare hosts a litany of events along that vein, so just Google Felicia Shakespeare as well for some of those meetup opportunities so that we can get people more versed in this tech world. I want to break down really quickly because we talked about how Instagram, because it's all photo-based, may be the best thing for people who are photographers or models or do hair. Why would a person want to get on Pinterest, for example? Let's break down what the different uses of these different social media platforms are, because I see a lot of people misuse some of them too. So Pinterest, for example, what is that for?
What I like about Pinterest, like when I think automatically, the concept is pinning. So once you locate something on Pinterest that you are interested in, you can actually, what they call, pin it or save it, almost like if you can imagine a cork board, and you having these different Post-it notes with all these different categories up before you. So you could actually categorize it electronically. Once again, for me, I'll be honest with you, I'm not on Pinterest a ton. I've just started getting back on there since I started blogging again. But they have a myriad of, once again, visuals. It's
like an online vision board almost.
Right, it's a vision board. Or a cork board. I think of it like that.
Oh, cork board, okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're basically you're putting in categories all the things that you have interest in. So, like one of mine is healthy living and eating and exercise. So, like when we came in the beginning of the year, they had all those challenges, the sit-ups and all that. So I was able to go pinpoint some 30-day challenges and things like that. And now also the other side to that, Domate, is that once you show an interest in something in Pinterest, it will start feeding you those particular things that you're interested in, right? So it'll kind of give you some alerts and let you know. So I think that's one great example for Pinterest.
I've seen that a lot too for people who are into healthy living recipes and different recipes. People pin those on Pinterest as well. So it helps you organize your thoughts and interests.
And you just gave me another one because a lot of teachers use it for ideas. Like if you want ideas on how to do certain things, like for example, bulletin board ideas. You're getting bored. You want to be more creative. So I think it's a real space for creatives.
Yeah.
It has a lot of similarities to Instagram because you are visually engaging on Pinterest.
Okay, so on the totally opposite end, because I think about hobbies and personal interests, on the hobby piece, on the business side, I should say, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
What is the main purpose of LinkedIn and how can we use it? Because as in the example I gave earlier, that older professional that is in a different space in their life that may not engage in social media for fun, they might enjoy LinkedIn. Explain what the purpose and function of LinkedIn is and how we can navigate it.
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the space for business and business professionals, those seeking employment, those seeking to network with like-minded individuals. You literally have access, once again, to information about individuals, their life, their story. And what I like about LinkedIn, unlike a Facebook profile, of course, you're doing your about, it's a brief synopsis on like Facebook and Instagram, it's very brief. But with LinkedIn, it's a very detailed synopsis about that individual by category. So where you worked, who employed you for how long. What I like about LinkedIn also, you get endorsements, you can have recommendations live. And a lot of employers are now engaging LinkedIn through social media or through their means of you getting employment or actually applying for employment. And they want to know, did you come from that route? Because they are engaging that as a recruitment asset. So I see LinkedIn as, once again, more of someone, and I think also, if I'm not mistaken, LinkedIn has your personal, your career, and your entrepreneur. So there are 3 different categories. The other side to LinkedIn, you have your thought leaders out there. So in all those individuals that are in business, your Tony Robbins, the gentleman, Richard Branson, Virgin, all those folks that you think are doing it so well, they actually have a way for you to follow their life, and they're always posting in that space too. So that's what I like about it.
Okay, I want to talk really quickly. Let us know, when people go to these meetups and they go to these conferences and they learn about becoming more digitally literate, what are they learning and how does it work when you're walking through it and talking through it with these folks? What will they see when they get there? In just a few sentences, if you can.
Well, I think at the end of the day, once again, you have to have a purpose in why you're doing what you're doing. And if you know what you're looking for, you can go into these spaces specifically asking for what you want and seeking out those opportunities to speak with those individuals who have that information.
Like this one. Again, AARP Tech Events is happening Tuesday, June 6th, 10:30 to 4 at the Evergreen Park Library. Again, this has been Redefine Possible. Time flies, doesn't it?
It flew.
I'm Domati Pungo. This is Felicia Shakespeare. Again, this is in partnership with AARP, Chicago Sky, and Donda's House. And again, Redefine Possible is all about finding ways to give more information to our communities. So thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you Tuesday, June 6th.